Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to bring on board Marco D'Amico, Montreal Canadiens reporter extraordinaire for RG Media. Look at him smiling. Look at him laughing. He's got training camp. He's excited like the rest of Hab world, right, Marco?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good time after a summer of anticipation. The Canadians were the most active team in the offseason. So now is the time where you want to see where they're at, especially after that surprising qualification of the playoffs last spring, to see if they could take that next step. So there's definitely a lot of energy, I would say, around the city when it comes to this team.
I was going to say, have we seen this much anticipation to the start of the season? Not that they're expecting a Stanley Cup, but in terms of building and moving forward, have we seen this type of anticipation in a while? We haven't, right?
I mean, I was at a sold out rookie game, not this weekend that just passed by, but the last Saturday before that, and like a rookie game selling out 20,000, like
Wow.
what I think it was 17,000 people, and it's just nuts. For just like again, we're talking about most of these kids are never going to play a game in the NHL, but it's just the feeling, the Canadians jersey, fans doing the wave. It was loud. Demidov was putting on a show. Like it was just fun. So I think fans are ready for this season to start, and there's a lot of anticipation for real.
Very cool. Before we get into Ivan and some of the other individuals on the NHL roster, what about those prospects? Is there anybody that's like, "Wah," like, because it's a pretty decent list of youngsters. So who's kind of leaped out at you?
Yeah, well, you always have Ivan Demidov. He's at this point an NHLer, so we don't really consider him a prospect unless you're doing rankings or whatnot. Florian Jacki, brother of Arbor, definitely someone that caught eye. Obviously, this is a guy that initially many saw as a nepo pick, but was just a late bloomer in junior, and came in as a he was still eligible to go back to, I believe it Brampton. Hamilton Bulldogs moved to Brampton, so he's eligible to go back to junior last year, and instead stayed in the American Hockey League and put up 24 goals playing fourth line minutes and primarily
Wow.
PK. So kind of turned a lot of people's heads to saying like, okay, well, this may not be your typical throwaway fourth round pick. There's potential to that, and so you know, the Canadians obviously saw that, wanted to put him with more offensive players. They played him with Demidov, and it was fantastic. Honestly, just the physical play that he brings, the way that he's able to play in tight, very much that power forwards game, but someone that plays center. That's excessively rare nowadays. So someone that definitely stood out. And then, we had defensemen that we saw like David Reinbacher, who's starting hopefully his first full healthy season since being drafted, and Adam Engstrom. Those two are expected to be the backbone of the Laval Rocket, the Canadiens affiliate. It's supposed to be the backbone of their defense and really the two big names that they have outside of their existing seven defensemen on their roster that could really make a difference.
It's one of the younger, you've mentioned prospects, but and then of course Demidov, and we've got other youngsters in the lineup. I think you have four entry level players on out of the 14 listed on the NHL roster in terms of salaries. So is that bottom six? I mean, we're talking about the Owen Becks and the Zach Boldicks of the world. I think they're 21 and 22 years of age, respectively. Is it an
Yeah.
open competition in the bottom six? Like, how are they viewing this? And is it really going to be that young?
Yeah, I mean they're gonna have a veteran bottom six line for sure of
Yeah.
Gallagher, Evans, and Josh Anderson. Then
Yeah.
then you'll Bulzik is basically a lock to make the roster. I don't think they make that trade for him without thinking as such.
Yeah.
And then Alex Newhook is basically a shoe in on that third line. So there's
One spot.
realistically there's one spot open, and they've tried Owen Beck in that spot. By the time this episode comes out, I don't know if the Canadians will have played on Tuesday night, but Joshua Roy will have been tried in that spot. And I'm sure they're going to test Oliver Kapanen in that spot as well. There's about six players vying for that last spot,
Wow.
notwithstanding Kirby Dach's health. So it's a very healthy competition. And honestly, the first preseason game was last night. Oliver Kapanen played with Ivan Demidov again. And then you had Owen Beck playing with, his AHL teammates from last year. And it was actually Owen Beck that stood out more. and really kind of ran with it and helped the Canadiens tie the game and push the game to overtime. So it's um it's going to be an interesting dynamic because a lot of people kind of had their pre-existing notions of what is, and obviously, like I said, the game is played on the ice, and it's interesting to see who can prove their doubters wrong in this case.
Yeah. What is Kirby Dach's health?
And that is I feel like that is the forever question, but Kirby Dach is, if the season started today, Kirby Dach would probably be on and on, off and on kind of thing. So
Okay.
it was the same kind of surgery. The Canadians started bringing their surgeries, especially knee surgeries, in-house. Their head doctor now does it instead of sending them over to the stateside. Um, so David Reinbacher, I believe it was his ACL last year this time against the Leafs, completely tore it, and so they did the surgery, and he was diagnosed 5 to 6 months before coming back. And then when he did come back, they played him every other game
Yeah.
before they felt like he was ready to go. There's a belief that Kirby Dach will be ready to start the season, but that they will bring him back every other game simply because of the condensed nature of the schedule, seeing as we have the Olympics blocking off 3 weeks of the NHL calendar. So you have Canadians have 16 back-to-back games scenarios, which is the most in the league with the San Jose Sharks. They have a rock and roll month of October, so I think there's a reason why they're trying a guy like Oliver Kapanen in Doc's spot because they want to see if they keep him on the roster, if he can be a plug and place kind of guy in case Dach isn't ready to go. Like for example, Montreal plays um, in Toronto, and then the next night plays in Detroit. So or Chicago. I have to double check, but either way, they have a back-to-back first 2 games of the season. And I don't know that Kirby Dach will play both. So that's why they're testing youngsters to see who can kind of fill that spot. The expectation is he'll eventually find his rhythm similarly to what Ryan Backer did, and will be able to play full time by like mid to late October.
Uh, Depending on the health,
Yeah,
that strength up the middle becomes an issue for the Habs starting out, of course,
tell me
depending
about
on,
it.
right? So it's kind of reminiscent of what's happening on the West Coast with Vancouver. It's like, what exactly are we going to get? Are we going to get up the middle? Are we deep enough? Are we going to get productivity? No offense to the fellas in the bottom six, but
Yeah.
that's kind of the reality right now.
Yeah, well, I would say that the difference is I feel like Vancouver has a little bit more urgency in that department, right? They
Mhm.
have to find a way to convince Quinn Hughes to stay. They need to be competitive, right? Whereas Montreal, I think they can afford to see where the season takes them and
Yeah,
then see how the center market shakes up and how Kirby Dach performs, and then kind of make a decision around American Thanksgiving about where they want to go and what teams are going to be selling off at that point. So
right.
that's why they're patient with it. There was no center market. You'll know right away there was no center market this summer, or else Vancouver would have been all over it. And so it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out. But I think those are going to be two teams that are going to be very aggressive on centers come late November.
Who or what do we think is Patrik Laine this season?
Man, only Patrik Laine knows the answer to that question nowadays, right? Um, I mean, listen, he was obviously playing not to get injured in his first game. You saw some really nice things from a puck handling perspective, but there were still some situations where you would assume even if it's preseason, you're just not seeing the reads that you'd want to see, giveaways, lost pucks that were unforced, stuff like that. I mean, it's not all bad. You saw some really good plays from him. Obviously, he's always got that Canada one-timer, so he's always dangerous in that regard. But if you're gonna play with a rookie like Ivan Demidov, then you absolutely need to be able to follow it 5-on-5. You cannot be an anchor on that line because the Montreal Canadiens, if anything this season, making the playoffs is the priority, right? Priority number two is ensuring that Ivan Demidov develops into a star. And I
Right.
don't think you're going to be able to do that if he's dragging literally Patrik Laine to the offensive zone to make things happen. Like he's got to follow suit. So definitely going to have to see him increase his pace, but it's very likely that he's able to do so and is just trying not to get injured in his first training camp game like last year.
I gotcha. That's going to be that'll be one to watch. Your goaltending situation, Montembeau and who? Once we get rolling.
Yeah, so definitely Montembeault is the starter. I think the Canadians had a lot of, well, I wouldn't say a lot of trouble, but they definitely needed him in their series against Washington when we went down with a groin injury. It kind of took the wind out of their sails a little bit. So he's de facto number one in this case. And then there's the semblance of a battle in net, I would say, between Jakub Dobeš, Jacob Fowler, and Kaapo Kähkönen.
Yeah.
I think that's Jakub Dobeš's role to lose. My 2 cents. I think he played well enough in the playoffs that the Canadians feel like he can be a serviceable backup. In fact, Dobeš's call up last year was at the point of the turning point for the Montreal Canadiens when they went from basement of the NHL standings to a run to the playoffs. Is exactly when they called up Dobeš, and he put on spectacular performances in January to kind of help the Canadians get that momentum and vault themselves up the standings. So I feel like he played 18 games last year, I believe. He should be good for at least 25, in my opinion, if not 30, especially with a condensed schedule the way it is and the back-to-backs that they have. He's
Yeah.
guaranteed to play at least 16 of them because there's 16 back-to-backs. Um, and then after that, you'll add the spotted, 9 other games. But Montembeault played 61 games last year, and it caught up to him in the playoffs. I feel like that's too much in today's NHL. You're
Yeah.
going to have to rely on Dobeš, but they won't be shy if there's anything that goes wrong. Similarly to last year, to call up Kähkönen, who has proven that he could play at the NHL level, albeit maybe not as a number one.
Yeah. By the way, you talked about patience and growing, and there's the urgency is not necessarily there because this is a work in progress, and everybody's excited about where this might end up, in a year or two. Jacob Fowler is a guy in net that they're basically like, hey, 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 let's work through this, give him reps, grow him, but they're thinking, okay, this is the future.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I think he solidified that last night. He played half the game plus overtime plus shootouts and didn't allow a goal. Well, I mean, he did in the shootout, but he didn't allow a goal in the second, third, and overtime. And what a save he made in overtime. And I think you couple that with some of the performances we saw of him right out of the NCAA and the AHL playoffs last year. One of those was a shutout victory. I think he is a legitimately like one of the top three goaltending prospects in the NHL as we speak. And I think a lot of people agree with that. Now it's just a question of the erratic projection of goaltending or development. It's just so hard to project. They take their time. Some immediately come into the league at 23, like a Dustin Wolf, and just dominate. And
Yeah.
some of them take 4, 5, 6 years, come into the league at 27, 28, and then they take off. So it's really hard to tell. But he's got, one of the major question marks with him was his conditioning. I was right next to him yesterday, and he really, really slimmed down, looked very athletic. He moved accordingly on the ice, was very fluid. So I think the Canadians feel they got something special in him. But I think the Canadians, as an organization, also remember what happened with Carey Price when they put him in too soon
Yeah.
and how that almost ruined his career. You look at other goalies in the NHL, Spencer Knight specifically with the Florida Panthers. You look at Devon Levi with the Buffalo Sabres. It took him a while to start finding the rhythm. And only
Yeah.
now are they really like sniffing consistent NHL time. Well, Levi will see this season, but at least Spencer Knight took him a while, right? So you don't want to rush these guys out of the NCAA. You want to give them their reps. You really want to let them play and get used to that system. So if it means that he gets a game or two as candy for the season, then that's great. But I don't expect him to play like meaningful amount of games until at least next year.
Yeah. Very unpredictable, as you just pointed out. Like for every Dustin Wolf, there's a Joey Daccord, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Who blows up when
Exactly.
he's 27 or 28 instead. All right, RG Media. It's Marco D'Amico. He's got it dialed in, as you can see and hear. Um, just, I don't think it's completely set up yet, but tell the folks where they'll have another opportunity to see you on your own pod coming up. You want to throw it out there, even though you're still kind of getting there?
Yeah, sure. We're already starting. It's under the Sean Star podcast as is, but shortly it will be renamed the Star and D'Amico podcast, and we'll be covering specifically the Canadians as we have for the last year. And then there's the French side of things, but I'll leave that for them.
Star and D'Amico. I don't know. Alphabetically, it should be D'Amico and Star, but I'm not gonna. I'm not your agent, so I'm just
No, you're
I'm,
not.
I'm just busted chops. Marco, fantastic stuff. Look forward to checking with you maybe around the holidays to see who's in the playoff picture and who's not. And hopefully the Habs are. I know their fans are jonesing for more of what they saw at the end of last season. So thank you very much and enjoy.
Thank you for having me. I think that'll be a great time to talk because things are expected to move around that time.